Hi, it's Sandy Wyllie. Welcome to my mental health channel where I wipe away the stigma of mental illness by talking about my own struggles having borderline personality disorder. I talk about a lot of mental health issues, and I have written many books about my experiences with unethical psychologists that sexually abused me. The links to all my books are down below in the description. Um, I am a former patient of almost 20 years. I have no therapy degree. I'm not a therapist, so I cannot offer you professional opinion. Please like and share my videos. Please comment in the comment section. Let me know what your thoughts, your opinions are, and because I'm interested in you guys and what you think. Today, I'm going to talk about how to recognize the signs of therapist burnout and compassion fatigue. Now, you might say to me, um, since I've always acknowledged that I'm not a professional therapist, how would I know what therapist burnout is if in compassion fatigue if I'm not a therapist? I know because I'm a patient. I've been a patient for almost 20 years, since my late 30s. I'm in my very late 50s. I'm 59 and a half. So I've known the effect of burnout on the therapist because I've been personally involved in personal relationships with therapists who were burnt out. And I know the effect as a patient. Much like if a parent is burnt out, if say a mother has like 5 young children under the ages of, 10, and she's trying to juggle everything, she's a single parent. The children will know that the mother is burnt out because she'll lose her patience. She'll start yelling. She might abuse her children. She just won't have any time for her children. It'll show. Her children will know. And I knew from my therapist that they were burnt out. One even admitted to me, Dr. Richard Geis admitted to me that he was burnt out. So let me talk about what can lead. First of all, this is going to be a sectional. I'm going to do this video in sections. I'm going to talk about first what leads to therapist burnout and compassion fatigue. And I'm going to talk about it because the first time I experienced it with a psychologist is with Dr. Richard Geis. And I've written this book. This is all about Dr. Richard Geis, Love Bombed by a Harvard Psychologist. And Dr. Richard Geis was the first time I experienced compassion fatigue and therapist burnout. And I'm going to explain what went on in that therapy. When I first met Dr. Richard Geis, I'll go by Dick. Okay, it's much easier to say Dick. Everyone called him Dick. He had a profile on Psychology Today's website. You all might be familiar with Psychology Today's website. It's like a dating app for shrinks, to get patients, not dates, of course. They have their picture, much like, a dating app, and then they have a bio of themselves, their education, their experience, what they believe in, how they're different from other therapists, what kind of module they use. And because not all therapy is the same. There's, different, there's CPD, there's psychodynamic, there's analytical, there's CBD, CP, there's all, you get the drift. It's not one size fits all. And then you can get an idea if you want, to call them up and set up an appointment. Sometimes they have the first, do a free phone session just to see if or sometimes they have a first free therapy session just to see if you're a good fit. Well, I started going to him. I called him up from the Psychology Today's website. I told him I liked his profile. He seemed nice, and I set up an appointment, and bam, hit it off great. He was everything and then some. I'm not going to go into the details about that. But yeah, he seemed to have compassion oozing out of every orifice. Very charming. very kind, a very good listener, all the things, not judgmental, all the things that I was looking for in a therapist. And he had lots and lots of time on his schedule. Now, this is what happened with him and how he got burnt out. In the beginning, he had large chunks of time. And over the course of 2 years, this is what led to his burnout and the demise of the therapy. He started filling up every slot he had with patients. He started working 12-hour days. He had back-to-back, like, revolving door of patients. Too many patients, and he didn't know how to separate his work from his home life. So he would take phone calls from patients on the weekends, on the weeknights, on his vacation. So he never shut himself off. He was always available to his patients 24/7. And he had his whole schedule was booked solid. So that, what I mean booked solid, I mean from like 7:30, 8 o'clock in the morning. And this guy worked till about 7:30 in the evening. All right. So he would work like 12-hour days, and it was booked solid. Sometimes he didn't even take a lunch break. And he answered emails. You have to read emails. He answered emails. He took patient phone calls. Then there's patient emergencies, right? Where sometimes he's in the hospital. A suicidal patient tried to kill herself. He goes to the hospital, and sometimes he didn't get home till after 11 o'clock at night after working a 12-hour day. And after having a lot of high demanding patients like me, intense, demanding, like borderline patients, if you take on one or two of them in the mix, because as a borderline patient, I was very demanding, and he had other patients like me, like a suicidal patient can be very demanding. You constantly have to, he might have an emergency call during a session because someone wants to kill themselves, so he has to take that as priority. So after being in so many crises, one crisis after another, never being able to shut yourself off from your work, he could not separate himself from his work, and his home life was affected. His wife was complaining, his marriage was suffering, because at the end of a 12-hour day with, a revolving door of patients, he still wouldn't shut off. If a patient called, he'd answer it. If there was a patient emergency, he'd have to go to the hospital. Then he'd check his email. He'd read all his emails, and then he'd write back all the people that wrote him, because he didn't, So he was never there for his family, Even when it was family time and work was over, his work was never over. It was never over on his vacations. He called patients, took patient phone calls during his vacation. In the evenings, I called him up at 2 o'clock in the morning and wake him up. So he was always on call. It was never a time where he just separated his family life from his work. It was, and that's very dangerous, very, very dangerous. Not being able to separate, okay, that's the number one thing. And if you're a therapist, please, you need to separate your personal home life from your professional job life. If you mix them together, you're going to burn out. And this is how burnout affected me as a patient. First of all, he became exhausted, irritable. He started shutting down, because when someone burns out, they start shutting down. Okay, they no longer have they have very little patience left. Compassion fatigue is if you keep hearing, these people keep having crises and telling you over and over for 12 hours a day, and then at night writing you emails and phone calls about their problems. Pretty soon you become immune to it all. So you lose your compassion. You become immune to listening to it so much that you've lost all your compassion. You lost all your patience. You become short-tempered. Uh, and this rubs off. It rubbed off on me. He started shutting down. He wouldn't return my phone calls. He made less and less time for me when I was in a crisis. He didn't respond when I was in a crisis because he had nothing left of himself to give. It's like the Giving Tree. Have you ever read the book The Giving Tree by Shel Silverstein? That is a perfect example, The Giving Tree by Shel Silverstein, is that his name? Of therapist burnout. Okay, in the beginning, he was a full tree. Okay, he gave his apple to the boy. In the end, I'm not going to go into the whole story in this video because I don't have the time. In the end, after giving and giving his tree so the boy could eat the apples, swing on his branches, make a swing, take the wood from the tree and build a boat, build a house. The tree had nothing left to give because he gave so much. And that was Dr. Richard Geis. He ended up becoming a stump, because he had nothing left. And this is what happens. And how it affects me as a patient is because then I need consistency, and he became completely inconsistent, he pulled away, he pulled back. And as a person who has borderline personality disorder, I have, a heightened fear of abandonment because of my childhood. My dad walked out of me when I was a little girl. So when I see him pulling back because he had nothing left to give, it affected me gravely, and I turned to alcohol over it. And I wrote all this in these books and everything. But so you can harm your patients. You harm yourself when you burn out. You harm your patients because you have nothing left of yourself to give. You become immune to what they're telling you. You've heard it. You hear it all day for 12 hours a day. On the weekends, people calling, emergencies, that you become immune to it. So the patients pick this up. They notice you withdrawing. They notice your lack of patience. You become very defensive, short-tempered. You're tired. I mean, he fell asleep during the sessions. I don't know if I've written this in this book or another book. I might have not even, I don't know if I did. But he was nodding off during the sessions. He was just exhausted. And so obviously, if I'm talking to you, right, and you're nodding off, how's it going to make me feel? Like you're not paying attention to what I'm saying. You're falling asleep on me. So these are clear. I mean, by the time the therapist realized it, it's really too late. And then there was another doctor who had patient burnout and compassion fatigue, and that was Dr. Eugene Pagani. And this doctor was making a lot of great strides with me too. It's really sad, because we were doing so well together. He was the first therapist that made me feel some compassion for my mother. That made me open up and talk about my mother. In all the years of therapy, I would never talk about her because I hated her so much. I would never want to talk about her. So this was the first psychologist making great gains. But he was doing another side project on the side. This is how he burnt out. He was doing his full-time job as being a psychologist. Then he wrote a book about his uncle and his father. His father had a twin brother, and he wrote a book about that. And he was trying to get that book into a play, into a movie on the screen. So he was spending all this time on this project that meant a lot to him. But it was taking a great deal of time. And he had this was during he took a 2-week vacation, and he went to Europe. Now, the vacation wasn't a relaxing vacation. Like you and me, if we take a vacation, we relax, we might walk around and see the sights. This was to work on the project for his book becoming a movie. So it really wasn't a vacation. It was going away to Europe for 2 weeks to work on this project. He goes to where it happened. I read the book years ago. Um, and he's working on that. So it's not a relaxing vacation, it's a work vacation. So he was exhausted. When he came back, he looked exhausted, like he didn't take a vacation. When I go on a vacation, I go to Aruba, I lay on a beach, okay, with a cocktail in my hand, and I go out to fancy dinners. I might go to the casino. It's relaxing. I'm not working on a project. I'm not working on a book, or I'm not working on, filming a video or for you guys or something like that. I'm just totally relaxing and getting away. When he went, he didn't do that. When you go on vacation, you need to shut out work completely, okay? You need to get someone else, a backup therapist, so they can call that therapist in an emergency. You can't be on call. You need to shut yourself away completely. Get away from your work. That's what vacation means. You get away from the grind completely. You get someone else so they can, they don't feel abandoned. You give them another therapist that they can call and they can see during your absence. But this therapist was working on this other project to turn his book into a movie. And when he came back, I looked at him and he looked exhausted, And I told him that. I said, "You look exhausted." And he was very short-tempered. His vacation wasn't relaxing. He was working on it. And it didn't work out. He didn't like me calling him on it. I told him, "You're burnt out." No one likes you calling them on their shit, okay? And whenever I call people and I speak honestly and openly to them and call them on their shit, they don't like that. And I called him on a shit. I said, "You look really burnt out, and I think you need some help. You need to probably talk to someone about it." And the next time, no, not the next time. He wrote me an email telling me, I can't work with you anymore. Goodbye, good luck. After 2 years, because I called him out on his shit. I told him he was burnt out. So now let's talk about some of the ways that therapists can prevent burnout and compassion fatigue. You need to learn boundaries. Don't they teach you that? Boundaries, okay? Boundaries that separate, okay? They're walls. Boundaries separate. This is my space and that's your space. So you have to separate. This is my workspace and this is my home space. This is my personal space and this is my professional space. And you have to separate them. You do. You cannot blend them all together. You cannot have patients calling you up. You have to make clear and consistent boundaries and keep them. Dr. Richard Geis had no clear, consistent boundaries when he was with me. His boundaries were all over the friggin' place. They were like, woo, woo. So you have to spell it out. What you will tolerate, what you will not tolerate. All right. A lot of therapists say, I don't do emails. Or you could say, I don't read emails on the weekend. Whatever it is, you have to separate. I don't read emails after 5 o'clock on weeknights. And I don't read emails on the weekends. I don't take calls after 5 o'clock in the evening or any time on the weekend unless it's a dire emergency. Dire. Separate those two, okay? Make those, separate the work life from your personal life. Your schedule, all right? Wall-to-wall patients, 12 hours a day. You need to take a break. Working 12 hours a day is Superman. This guy thought he was Superman. All right, you're not Superman. You're a human being. All right, you don't have a cape. You don't fly. All right, you're not omnipotent. You think that a lot of these people are omnipotent. They think they're God. They think they're Superman. They think they can do it all. They can have it all. Well, you can't do it all. You can't have it all. Something will give, all right? So you have to cut back. And I told this to Dick. I told him, before you had less patience and you gave more care. Now you have more patience and you give less care. And I felt it deeply. It was devastating to me when he pulled back. I was devastated. I was really hurt because he tried to, push too much in. If you try to fill in too much at once, even if you go on a vacation and you try to see every single thing and book your day solid, you're going to be exhausted, even if you're doing fun things. All right, say I'm going to Europe and I have 1 week in Europe, so I'm trying to jam pack it all in that 1 week. I'm trying to see London, I'm trying to see Paris, I'm trying to see Rome, I'm trying to see Amsterdam, I'm trying to see Madrid. I'm trying to get, squeeze every ounce of it. I'm running from one country to another, to another, to another. I'm trying to see as much as I can. I'm not going to enjoy it. I mean, it's all going to be a big blur. Less is best. Less is best, okay? So cut back. Don't tell me I can't afford it. Well, you can't afford to get a heart attack, all right? Land up in the hospital, can you? You're going to be out of commission. You're going to lose patients. What if one of them decides to kill themselves because you weren't available? In the end, something's going to suffer, all right? All right, so something's going to suffer. Your patients are going to suffer, and you're going to suffer. So you've got to cut back, not, have a full load of patients, That's another thing. Your schedule. Look at your schedule. Realistically look at your schedule and say, I need to separate some time during the day so I can, just have, decompose myself, relax and take a breath away from everyone. And I need to set my schedule to an even keel where I won't burn out. So that's different for everyone. I can't tell you how to set your schedule. You might have like a few patients in the morning, then have like an hour break and relax. And then you might have a few patients in the afternoon. But having patients from 7:30 in the morning to 7:30 at night, no. No, you really have to set your schedule to a realistic pace that you can handle. A pace that you can handle, and what you can handle and what some other therapists can handle are two different things. Maybe some young therapist at 30 years old can handle 10 patients a day because they're 30, they're single, they don't have no children or anything. But another therapist in his 50s, he can only handle 6 patients a day. So everybody's different. So you have to set the pace that you can handle. All right, and you can know what you can handle because you'll feel relaxed. You won't feel tired, fatigued, So that's another thing. Set your own pace, something you can handle. You have to put up those boundaries. You have to put a wall between your work and your personal life. And get into your own therapy. Therapists need to be in their own therapy. This is another big thing. You need to talk to someone about all this, a colleague, a supervisor, or more importantly, maybe another therapist. Therapists need their own therapists, okay? They think just because you're a therapist doesn't mean that you don't need one. You do need one. You do need to be talking to someone else about it, because what you do for a living all day, you're listening to people. Who is listening to you and your problems and what you're going through? So you definitely need to get your own therapist. You need to sit down and just be the focused ones. Instead of everyone coming to you, right? You need someone to focus on yourself, all right? You need to sit down and talk to a therapist, your therapist, and tell them what you're feeling. Talk about your patients. Talk about what you're going through. All right, that's another major thing to do that will help you keep your compassion and not burn out, is it by going into your own individual therapy. So that's the last bit of advice I can give you. Um, let me know. I'm sure if there was a therapist who commented on my last video that gave me the idea for this video. So thank you very much to you if you're watching this video. And if you're a therapist or if you're a patient and you have any more great ideas, please put them down in the comments below. Let me know if you had compassion fatigue or burnout yourself if you're a therapist, or if you suffered it like I have from your, as a patient, from your therapist having burnout and compassion fatigue. How does it feel as a patient when your therapist is going through this? Let's talk about it. Let's bring this awareness out in the open to everyone. It's a very important subject. And until next time, take care.